Hello YouTube, I am Arend Peter. Today we're going to be doing a GameMaker tutorial featuring pro tips on how to make platformers in GameMaker. So there are two types of people who are going to be opening this video, and I want to address both of you individually. Part of you are maybe new to GameMaker and maybe don't know how to implement a platformer yet. Well, for you, you're not quite ready for this video yet, but you're in luck because this video is a follow-up on my basic platformer tutorial. So go ahead and watch that one first, and then you can come back here and watch the pro tips video. Links in the description to the basic platformer video. Alright, for the other half of you, you probably already know how to make a basic platformer, and for you, it's probably not worth your time to watch that intro video. So this is going to have various pro tips on making platformers in GameMaker that I've picked up over the years of making platformers in GameMaker. So there's a handful of tips. Some of them you may already know. Some of them are probably new to you. And if you decide to keep watching, I'd be interested to know which ones ended up being interesting to you. So that is all I wanted to say. Let's go ahead and hop into the video. We're going to pick up where we left off at the end of the basic platformer video. So one sort of minor thing that I forgot to mention is the reason I have these solids in this way, semi-transparent, is because we can make them invisible later, and then that will look better, because that way the tile sets your environment will imply whether it's solid. They don't actually need to see the collision boxes. So that's one thing you can do to make this look a little bit better, assuming you have a good tile set behind it. The next little tip I want to give is if I jump into the player, you know, the code works perfectly as is, works fine as is, but one thing you're probably going to be doing as soon as you implement this in your game is you're going to be wanting to tweak a lot of the values to make it feel exactly right. So let's say you want to change your horizontal speed, you're going to need to change this 4, and you're going to need to change it in 4 places. So this is very error prone, like if you forget one of them, and it's overall kind of tedious and not fun. So that's why we use variables. So I'm going to create a variable for, I'm going to call it move speed, and we're going to set it equal to 4. And while I'm at it, let's also set some variables for our gravity and our jump speed. So I'm going to set gravity equal to 0.5, and then our jump speed equal to -10. So now, when you're tweaking your game, when you're making it feel exactly the way you want to, you will be tweaking the values here rather than digging to the code every time. So of course we're going to need to apply those variables over here. So all these 4s need to become move speed. And a faster way to do that is to hit Control F, and then we can change all of the 4s to move speed. And then I can go ahead and hit this button to replace all of them. Excellent. And the grav also needs to change, and the jump speed also needs to change. This one's a little bit more involved. I need to change that to a plus equals and change that to jump speed. Cool. So this is one I strongly recommend. Anytime you're tweaking your variables, or especially if you're working with a more art-oriented person, if they're tweaking the variables, you want that to always happen in the create event. You don't want people to have to dig into your code to do that sort of thing. Alright, so the next tip I want to give. So this is code you're going to be writing a lot. Every time you make a new platformer project, or if you want trying out an idea, you're going to be typing out this movement code to make your platformer. So I've probably typed this out 1,000 times or something at this point, and I've learned a few little shortcuts I can take in order to type this out a little faster. So I wanted to kind of share those with you as well. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to look at the horizontal movement section, and we're going to split it up in a similar way that we did with the vertical movement, where we have a dx variable, and dx gets added to y, gets added to your x. So here we're going to say dx equals 0. Then at the end of our horizontal logic, you will be doing x plus equals dx. And I can comment all this out. So I'm going to show you how I can read the keyboard input and set dx in one line. Here's how we do that. There you go. So let's go through it. So one thing to note is that this keyboard check function, it returns either true or false, but in GameMaker, true or false is the same as saying 1 or 0. So we can go through all these cases and see if it changes dx the way we'd expect. So if we think about this line here, when vk right is true, that would set vk right equal to 1, vk left is 0. If we do 1 minus 0, that's 1. 1 times move speed means our dx is equal to move speed, which is exactly what we'd want in this case. Here the dx, or the change in our x, is equal to move speed. Okay, we could do the same thing for vk left. If we're moving to the left, then this equation will this equation will become 0 minus 1, which means our dx is negative move speed, which again is exactly what we want for moving left. You can go through the same scenario with if they're both pressed, then it'll be 1 minus 1 equals 0, or neither of them are pressed at 0 minus 0 equals 0. And in both those cases, your dx is going to be equal to 0 correctly. Okay, so that handles your dx, and that handles that's your input. Next, we want to do the facing and collision, because those are some aspects that are also handled in this previous code. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do the facing logic, again, in one line. Alright, so here we're setting our image xscale equal to the sign variable. So sign looks at a number and can return one of three things. It'll return 1, 0, or negative 1, depending on the sign of the variable. So if it's below 0, if it's negative, the sign would be negative, so it returns negative 1. If it's positive, it'll return 1. If it's 0, it'll return 0, 0. So this aligns perfectly with how we want to set image xscale. If our dx is more than 0, meaning we're moving to the right, then we want image xscale to equal 1. If dx is negative, meaning moving to the left, we want our image xscale to equal negative 1. The only scenario we don't want to handle is if we're not moving. If dx is equal to 0, we don't want our scale to change to 0. So for that reason, I have to add this little if statement here to say only do this if dx is not equal to 0. Okay, cool. Now we can do collision, and here's how you do that. So we're doing essentially the exact same thing we're doing over here, where we're checking for place free. The difference is that here we're checking if place is free and then setting the speed. Now we're setting the speed regardless up here, but then we check if not place free in order to fix it up. And instead of having to needing to do it twice for plus movement speed and negative movement speed, we can just do it in one place depending on whatever we set our dx to. So here we're saying if the spot we're about to move to is not free, we're going to set our dx equal to 0. Alright, so I guess it could be argued that the number of lines we're using here is pretty similar to right here, but I'm using more comments here, and the amount of code I'm writing is much less. And more important than that, is much easier to modify this. So, for example, move speed, I only need to reference it once right here, whereas I need to reference it 4 times in the old code. Image xscale needed to be updated in 2 places over here. Here it's only updated in 1 place. And similarly, this collision check is only in 1 place. So it nicely kind of breaks our code into 3 pieces and does like the specific work for each line. Again, both of these methods are completely fine. I think this first one is a little easier to understand, which is why I used it in the tutorial. But if this other way of doing it, if that feels intuitive to you, then feel free to do that. If not, the old way is perfectly fine. I just wanted to kind of throw this out there for you to think about. Okay, last little tip. So over here we have this if statement for the 2 versions of move contact solid, but these lines look almost exactly the same apart from this 90 and the 270. So what we really want to do is we want to have we want to essentially have one line with move contact solid, and then have like a mini if statement in here for the 90 or the 270. And that is actually called a ternary operator. So let me go and show you how we use the ternary operator to make this a little bit simpler. And there we go. So this is essentially a mini if statement. Here we're saying if dy is less than 0, go with the first part, 90. If dy is not less than 0, if it's bigger than 0, go with the other side, 270. So then we can remove this. And there you go. Now you know how to use the ternary operator. Now if we test this, we should see the same results. There we go. Everything works exactly the same. All right. So that's the end of this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. This is actually part of a series of videos where I'm making a basic platform in this castle world. So check out the playlist if you are interested in more of the effects that you see in that final product. One of the next ones that might be particularly interesting to you is how to do a Goomba jump effect, where you jump on top of an enemy and you can pop up and you kill the enemy. That is one of the videos in this series that might be interesting. So yes, that is all for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.